KDWN News Time, 9 o'clock. For 20 years, Airene Williamson Associates have helped Las Vegas locals protect against foreclosure and file Chapter 7 and 13 bankruptcy. If you're in trouble, call 259-0002. Good morning. I'm John Schaefer with this hour's top stories. Police say they have a warrant for the arrest of a 26-year-old ex-convict who's been identified as the prime suspect in that shooting and fiery crash that killed 3 last week on the Strip.
We will eventually catch up with Amar Harris, and we believe someone knows where he is. We are urging you to give us a call.
Metro Captain Chris Jones said anyone who's hiding or aiding Harris also faces prosecution. The search is broadened to the southeast part of the U.S. Harris once lived in and has criminal records in South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. A 65-year-old man is dead after his Toyota Prius went off the road and hit a power box in a Summerlin neighborhood early this morning. Metro police say the Prius veered off the roadway, drove across a sidewalk, and ran into that box. The driver was pronounced dead at Summerlin Hospital. His name and exact cause of death have not yet been released. A troubled state assemblyman who has been barred from the legislature after allegedly threatening some colleagues won't be able to buy a gun for at least a year. The Nevada Department of Public Safety denied Democrat Stephen Brooks' purchase of a rifle based on the background check forms he filed at a Sparks sporting goods store last Thursday. Brooks' lawyer did not return calls. Records Division Chief Patrick Conway says the reason for the denial is confidential. House Republicans aren't budging from their idea of how to stop automatic spending cuts from kicking in on Friday.
While the president's insisting on a package of targeted spending cuts and tax increases to offset the so-called sequester, House Speaker John Boehner is not biting.
Mr. President, you got your tax increase.
Referring to the rate hikes that kicked in January 1st, Boehner says targeted spending reductions are the only option, and a deal could be within the grasp of both the president and the Democrat-led Senate if they were serious.
The president could sit down with Harry Reid tonight and work with Senate Democrats who have the majority in the Senate to move the bill.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
An initiative pushed by the state teachers union and other labor groups will get a hearing before a Nevada legislative panel on March 5th. The proposal seeks to impose a 2% margins tax on businesses grossing more than $1 million. Supporters say it would raise $800 million a year for K-12 education. A bill introduced in the Nevada legislature would shave traveling time for motorists through the state's wide open territory. SB 191 would allow the Nevada Department of Transportation to increase the speed limit to 85 miles per hour on some of the state's more rural stretches of highway, like Interstate 80, if it determines the higher speed limit would be safe. The financial report brought to you by Las Vegas jewelry and coin buyers. On Wall Street, the Dow's up 57 points. Gold is at $16.15 an ounce, silver $29.34, platinum $16.09, and palladium $7.40. For questions about your precious metal or coins, call 547-1670. The news brought to you by Starbucks Via. Between the snooze button in the shower, the commute, and the conference call, Starbucks Via makes it easy to enjoy a delicious, rich cup of coffee. Just add hot water, stir and sip. When you have Starbucks Via, there's always time for Starbucks. Look for it where you buy groceries. It's 9:03. Here's Mitch Kelly with the latest from the KDWN 1 Nevada Credit Union Traffic Center.
This report brought to you by the City of Las Vegas. City of Las Vegas animal control officers responded to hundreds more residents' calls over the last year, helping reunite lost animals with their owners and more. Visit www.lasvegasnevada.gov/YourCityWorks to learn more about how your city works for you. Got a new accident with NHB on scene on the Sahara off-ramp from 15 northbound. Getting a little better on 95 southbound, which was just a mess this morning between the Rainbow Curve and Spaghetti Bowl. Still have a pair of accidents being cleaned up 95 south between Rainbow and Jones and 195 southbound at Jones, but no lanes are blocked. Earlier wreck on 95 southbound approaching South Rancho that was blocking the left lane for 2 hours has just been cleared away. You've got lane restrictions in place now 95 northbound between Horse Drive and Kyle Canyon Road. Crews have to repair a section of damaged guardrail on the center median there. Those restrictions continue until 2:30 this afternoon. Service Street injury accident, southwest Rainbow at Russell, west side Twain at Jones. From the KDWN 1 Nevada Credit Union Traffic Center, I'm Mitch Kelly on News Talk 720 KDWN.
The KDWN forecast: sunshine 61 the high today, clear 38 overnight, then sunny 61 for Wednesday. Right now sunshine 49 degrees in Las Vegas. Your next update at 9:30 or when news breaks, and we're always streaming online at KDWN.com. Brought to you by Airene Williamson Associates. I'm John Schaefer, News Talk 720 KDWN.
It's almost here, the International Sportsman's Expo. Doors open 10 a.m. Thursday at the Las Vegas Convention Center. The Sportsman's Expo is back in Vegas with a real deal in fishing, hunting, and adventure travel expos. Meet with guides and lodges to book adventure trips nearby and around the world. Look for show specials down every aisle. This may be your best chance to talk with manufacturers reps from brands like Browning, Remington, Savage, and more. See the 3D pop-up archery contest. Bring the kids to the youth fair sponsored by the Nevada Department of Wildlife. Admission is $12 for adults and free for kids under 16. Tickets and discounts online at sportsexpos.com. The International Sportsman's Expo. Doors open 10 a.m. Thursday at the Las Vegas Convention Center. Catch the big one.
Get discount coupons at your local O'Reilly Auto Parts, Speedy Mart, and Tire Works stores. Visit sportsexpos.com for locations. The International Sportsman's Exposition, February 28th through March 3rd at the Las Vegas Convention Center.
More live local talk than any station in Las Vegas. News Talk 720 KDWN. 50,000 watts of news and talk. Be in the know when you're on the go. News Talk 720 KDWN is available wherever you are online at KDWN.com. At KDWN.com. Local, national, and international news, plus weather and traffic, all at your fingertips, all online at KDWN.com. The broadcast of information on this show does not create an attorney-client relationship with any of the listeners. Communication between the listener and the hosts of this show will not be confidential. The information provided on this show is prepared for a general audience without investigation into the facts of each particular case and is not to be considered legal advice. The information provided on this show should not be used as a substitute for legal advice. The listener is advised to consult with a qualified attorney on any legal issue they may have. It's time for News Talk 720 KDWN's Legal Hour. Have a legal question? Call now 257-KDWN. That's 257-5396.
Good morning, KDWN News Time 9:06. Welcome to the Tuesday edition of the KDWN Legal Hour. We are happy to have with us Las Vegas attorney Airene Williamson from the Williamson Law Office. Good morning, Airene.
Good morning, John. Great to be here again on Tuesday.
It is great to have you with us. And today, a big topic. It affects a lot of people that live here in Las Vegas, and it's a topic that angers a lot of people here in Las Vegas as well. HOAs, the laws governing them, what they can do, what they can't do, why some seem so powerful, and why they're trying to take over.
Right. And that's definitely a hot topic right now, especially in the Valley. And I think it's pretty popular for three reasons. One is the economic times right now. There's been an increase on HOA collections, so I should say failed HOA collections, which gives rise to disputes between HOAs and homeowners. And another trend that I've seen is a lot of HOAs are opting to foreclose on houses right now, and assessments probably in the amount of $2,000, they would foreclose on a $100,000 house. That's become a dispute between HOA and homeowners. And lastly, and I think a lot of people have heard about it, is the news on federal investigations in HOA. And I think it's in the past year, 27 defendants have pled guilty on federal crimes of some sort or another related to HOA fraud or allegations of fraud. And obviously the untimely deaths of some individuals related to HOA management. So that's been really a hot topic, and I'm hoping to get through some of these topics we have right now. And, in the first part of our show, probably in legislative bills and some collections and disputes on HOA.
All right, 257-5396 if you have a question or comment for Airene. Well, let's start with some of the bills. Our legislature here, of course, only meets every other year. So back in 2011, what sort of things were done to address HOA issues and concerns?
Well, there's a lot of bills that were passed in the HOA, and some of them actually failed. But unfortunately, I can only talk about one right now as far as 2011 because it's such a big bill that changed the NRS Chapter 116, which is the governing NRS for HOA. One of them is called the SB 204, which pretty much revamped the NRS Chapter 116. And I'm just going to go through some of the list of SB 204 so our property managers can kind of keep abreast of what is this updates in SB 204. One of them is that, and I think in my opinion, it's a big change, is that the HOA are not obligated to enforce the governing documents, or what we call the CC&Rs, in their discretion. And that's such a big change because in a lot of jurisdictions in the United States, we have this common law or court ruling that HOA has to uniformly enforce the CC&Rs. But with this law, now the law has given the HOA the power or the discretion to either enforce it or not, depending on whether it's if it's too minor, maybe it's too expensive for the HOA to enforce it. Maybe they don't have legal standing to enforce it. Or maybe they're just too busy to enforce it. So in different situations, they can choose not to enforce a CC&R or not, which in itself may or may not be a good thing. But, it will be an effect. Maybe we'll see in the next couple of years how this is going to affect enforcement. And as for attorneys, because our defense is that you have to uniformly enforce the CCNRs, but this law actually changes that.
Right. I can see a lot of that also just coming down to a person's personality. You might have a board that, that's okay, we'll let that go. Then you might have another board that decides everything by the book, and the minute your grass is too long, we are getting out there in front of your house with our notices.
Exactly. And although there is that SB 204, the HOA is held to a standard that they cannot enforce CCNRs in arbitrary and capricious manner. Obviously, that's a legalese word, and nobody really knows what it means. But basically, they cannot enforce it, at least before this SB 204, in their just arbitrary manner. But this basically gives them the right to enforce it if they think it's not in the best interest of the HOA. So that's one change that I've seen. Another change in the SB 204 that I've seen is that now, I think, it's in the existing books of the HOA, but not only are they now required to hold a common general liability insurance, but also crime insurance for directors and officers of the HOA, which is obviously brought upon this federal investigation has been ongoing for 4 years, and they're obviously aware of the fraudulent potential of governing the HOA, so they're now required to have a crime insurance. Another thing that I have seen, and I think it's a big change, is that especially for condos that are probably empty or substantially uninhabitable, a person that has an interest in a common interest community or an HOA, for example, a unit owner or a board, they can now apply to the courts to terminate the HOA in a condominium, for example, and without a notice to anybody living in a condo, if there's anybody still living in there. So they can do that and terminate that. And I just want to talk about termination of HOA because it's funny. Last week, I have a client that came to me frustrated about his HOA. And he said, can we terminate an HOA? Can we vote to terminate the HOA? And the answer is yes, but it's difficult to do that. The books right now requires an 80% vote of the voting members of the HOA to terminate an HOA. It's very hard, very difficult, and you have to go through a lot of procedures under the NRS Chapter 116 to terminate an HOA.
And I'm sure while that sounds like a good idea when people get angry with their HOA, but in reality, if you were able to terminate it, who then would financially take care of the things that they do, like the common areas in your community? Exactly. Where I live, we have swimming pools and a tennis court. I mean, we're not going to go around with a bucket and collect money. Hey, we need chlorine for the swimming pool this week, so everyone give me $1. Exactly.
And that's the difficult part. A lot of people are frustrated with the collection matters of the HOA, especially when there is a property manager managing an HOA or collection agencies tacking interest fees and assessments or what have you. And they come to me and say, "Can we terminate the HOA?" And I, it's a typical knee-jerk reaction. But sometimes there is, pros and cons to an HOA, and pros is they're there to theoretically preserve the value of the property. So that's one of the SBO 204 provisions that they have added. And one of the ones that I have seen that I think the property managers should be aware of is that in imposing fines or imposing fines on a unit owner, they are now required by the SB 204 to submit a schedule of fines to the homeowner, setting forth what the amount is if you violate a certain provisions of the CCNR, which just makes sense because at least unnoticed and how much you're going to pay if your grass is too long, or if you've left a sprinkler on, or what have you, or you painted right. your door incorrectly. So you have a schedule of fines that you're on notice of, and that's part of the SB 204. And another thing that I have seen, which actually may create some big change in the management of the property, is unit restrictions. And they said that if there is a unit restrictions that is now being placed on a CCNR that's never been there before, you need an anonymous vote from all of the homeowners to enforce the unit restrictions, which just makes sense because if there's a rule in the CCNRs that has never been there before, and now you as a homeowner is being imposed this amendment, then obviously you want to be able to vote on it. And that has been existing in the HOA books in the past, but it's been taken out again, put it back on, but now in 2011 it's placed back again. So if there is a unit restriction on your property that is enforced after 2011, or I should say 2012, which is the effective date, make sure that as a property manager or as an HOA board, you are requiring a unanimous vote from your members before, putting this on the books. Otherwise, it's going to be invalidated.
You know, we talked about some of the things that happened in the last session, the General Assembly in session again right now. Are there bills or measures that are going to be coming up that you know of beforehand? Will they be working to change anything with SB 204? Because they don't seem to like to leave anything alone.
Right. You know, every legislative sessions from 2009 to 2011 to 2013, it seems like they keep on touching HOA matters, which makes sense because it's such a big topic right now. And one of the complaints I'm getting right now in 2013 legislative session is the recent AB 34. Now, there's a lot of other bills that are being introduced for 2013, which obviously I can't get to all of them in this hour, but AB 34 is probably the biggest change and the biggest objected to bill by the property managers.
All right. We will get more into AB 34 with Airene Williamson, Las Vegas attorney from the firm Williamson Law Office, right after we check in with Mitch Kelly in the KDON 1 Nevada Credit Union Traffic Center.
And this update at 9:15 is brought to you by the City of Las Vegas. City of Las Vegas animal control officers responded to hundreds more resident calls over the last year, helping reunite lost animals with their owners and more. Visit www.lasvegasnevada.gov/YourCityWorks to learn more about how your city works for you. Got a couple of right lanes blocked along the Southern Beltway. Got an injury accident 215 eastbound past South Decatur, so slowdowns through that area while emergency crews do their thing. Accident also on the Sahara off-ramp from 15 northbound. 95 southbound improving, but a pair of accidents remain, one between Rainbow and Jones, the other at Jones. No lanes blocked from that, though. You got those lane restrictions 95 northbound between Horse Drive and Kyle Canyon until 2:30 for guardrail repair. Southwest injury accident, Rainbow at Russell. New one on the east side, Bonanza west of Lamb. Your next update's at 9:30, and from the KDON 1 Nevada Credit Union Traffic Center, it's Mitch Kelly on News Talk 720 KDWN.
Hi, this is Jim Dallas of Beasley Broadcasting. For years, I tried to cover up my crooked teeth. Well, those days are now long gone after I went to see Dr. Miracondia and his staff at AQ Denture. In one day, AQ gave me a smile I'm truly proud of. Call AQ for an appointment at 565-6000. That's 565-6000. Dental problems don't have to hold you back anymore, and don't worry about the cost. AQ stands for affordable quality. AQ Denture, 565-6000. That's 565-6000 for AQ Denture. They'll restore your smile and your confidence.
Are you missing one or more teeth and wondering, what are my options? Or do you wear dentures and wish for a more permanent solution? Then this message is for you. Dr. Matashmi of Albright Dental invites you to a free dental implant seminar, 5:30 p.m. Wednesday, February 27th. Dr. Matashmi will share with you the many options available today, including implant-supported dentures or partials and single-tooth replacement implants. All seminar attendees qualify for free sedation with their implant procedure. RSVP today. Call 714-0998, 714-0998.
At Credit Restoration of Nevada, all we do is fix credit. Need a short sale judgment, tax lien removed from your credit? We can do it now. Credit Restoration of Nevada. Call us today at 702-778-2000.
Do you have hidden treasures laying around your house? Hi, this is John Burnett of Las Vegas Jewelry and Coin Buyers. Join me on Ask the Experts every Monday night at 6 p.m. on News Talk 720 KDWN, where we will discover valuables you have that you can convert to cash.
Now back to KDWN's Legal Hour. Have a legal question? Call now. 257-KDWN. That's 257-5396.
KDWN News Time, 9:18. Welcome back to the KDON Legal Hour with attorney Airene Williamson from the Williamson Law Office, discussing HOAs today. And Airene, before the break, we were talking about AB 34, which is something that's being addressed in this legislative session.
Right. And actually, the property managers that I represent and a lot of HOA board members that I represent are really keeping track of this bill, just because there's a lot of provisions in it that could be objectionable to some and could be seen as quite expensive for a lot of property managers to do. And one of them is that I'd like to highlight is the 3 sealed bid requirement. Now, when an HOA is contracting with an independent contractor or a vendor, it's always been in the books to have 3 sealed bids or to require sealed bids from vendors. The problem with the AB 34, and I'd like to hear from property managers out there, either by email info@wlawoffice.com or through the show, the problem is they have now defined association projects to constitute renewal of projects. So any renewal of any contracts will now require 3 sealed bids. So every time they have to renew, for example, painting a gate or replacing air conditioning and common elements, they will have to go to 3 sealed bids. And I don't really, when this passed long time ago, I'm not really sure if the goal of having a 3 sealed bids, because from what I hear, it hasn't been effective. And what's happening is that even though there's a sealed bid, and correct me if I'm wrong, property managers, but the report that I get is the property managers always select the vendors that they want anyway, even with the sealed bids. So right. So the goal is not really being met, and that's having a fair stepping stone for a lot of vendors. It's not being met. So I'm not sure where that's going to go from here on out. And another thing that's changed in the SB 34 is they are now requiring HOA board members or HOA board to have a voting monitor. I'm not quite sure what a voting monitor is. It's like, when I heard that, it's like a class monitor back in 6th grade. But basically, a voting monitor administers votes or collect ballots, create ballots, and then record it, and whatever needs to be done in a voting matter. They will now require a voting monitor in 3 instances. 1, if the president of the board requests it. 2, if the majority of the executive board requests it, or if 10% of the unit owners petition for the HOA board to hire a voting monitor. And now the Nevada Real Estate Division can qualify or certify a person to be a voting monitor. Now, obviously, the goal is to have a fair and honest voting because of all these fraudulent allegations circulating in the HOA world. But obviously now they have to hire a voting monitor, and they have to go to 3 sealed bids because it's an independent contractor technically. So it's a lot of property managers are objecting to it. They think it's an additional cost that is not required. It doesn't really, they think it's not really a reassurance that there's going to be a fair and honest elections. We don't know. And I don't know if it's ever going to pass. So that's one of them. And another thing that I have seen for AB 34, I should say, is now the ombudsman can now elect a referee. A referee will basically handle all the disputes between an HOA and a homeowner. The problem with a referee is that actually I've seen a report that it costs about $150,000 a year to have a referee, or because it's about $150 for, I think they have an average, or they did this kind of a survey. It costs $1,000 per case. And the ombudsman gets about an average of 150 cases a year. So that's $150,000 a year for a referee. Guess who pays for it? The homeowners and the HOA board in general. So the referee is there theoretically to mediate a dispute or to rule on a dispute, but they cannot rule on any damages above $7,500 or any attorney's fees, which for a lot of lawsuits, or I should say a lawsuit for a lot of disputes, could be damaging. And I say that not just an attorney, but a lot of people decide to either move forward with a dispute with the knowledge that they could be reimbursed for attorney's fees, because let's admit attorneys are expensive. So they decide on that. So a lot of that, well, we'll see what happens to that. But a referee, for a lot of people, they think it's going to be an expensive endeavor. And the one that I think is probably one of the biggest change is the reasonable belief requirement. When a HOA finds somebody for a violation, they have now, with the AB 34, they have to show a document evidencing that there is a reasonable belief that the person has committed a violation. What does that entail? Well, we don't know. We don't know what reasonable belief means. Does that mean pictures? Does that mean testimony? Does that mean, we don't know. But that's added in the AB 34 language, and we'll see how that works, and we'll see how the court interprets that if it ever passes in the books.
Yeah, a lot of it, again, members of a board of an HOA are all volunteers. They're people that live in your neighborhood. How are they supposed to keep track of all of these things that keep changing every 2 years? You know, that's a good question, John, because I can hardly keep track of the changes that they do almost every 2 years. And first of all, NRS Chapter 116, in my opinion, is not the best drafted Nevada revised statute out there. And I always think, how do they come up with this? Or how do they even think people can understand the language to put in this? What's the standard? And really, it's hard to keep up with it. And if there is anything that a property manager or an HOA have to do, especially when it comes to assessing fines or assessments or penalties or anything when it comes to meetings, they almost have to have an attorney every time they have a meeting, which it could be good, but also could be detrimental to a lot of property managers, especially for a small HOA. So that's something that they have to consider too, and that's really an expense that they have to take into consideration.
And with this additional requirements of AB 34, we don't know if it's going to pass or not, but maybe some of it will. It's going to be an additional cost for the HOA, yes.
Well, since we're talking about HOAs, how did they come about in the first place? How were they formed? Why was it decided that this is a good idea to have these homeowners associations?
Right. HOAs are formed for one particular reason, or theoretically, one reason is to improve the value of your property. They are there to basically come up with rules and regulations to, govern how you use a unit or common areas or common elements. And it's more popular here in the West Coast and California and Nevada. And obviously, more recently, if there is any new development at all in the town, it's going to have an HOA. And I say that because I think people have to realize that HOA, or I should say CC&Rs, when a developer develops a property, they will then convey the units to an HOA. Mm-hmm. The HOA will then form an executive board, and they will form what's called the conditions, covenants, and restrictions, or the other way around. I always flip that, but CC&Rs is what they call them, and they are recorded on the property. If the CC&R is recorded on the property, then if you're a unit owner and you buy it, then you're subject to CC&Rs. And I know a lot of people know that, but I think a lot of people forget that they are mandated to follow what's in the CC&R, and so they have to be careful when they buy a house or a condo that the CC&R is according to their lifestyle, or they're willing to be subject to whatever restrictions that CC&R is, because obviously you will be subject to it. And I say that because one of the clients came up with me, I think 2 weeks ago, and he says, I bought this property free and clear. I don't have a mortgage on it, but now the HOA is assessing me. And my strategy is to just ignore it, because I don't care if they collect on me. It's my house. And my answer to that is, unfortunately, you are under the restrictions of the CC&Rs. And unfortunately, if you have a delinquent assessment, especially nowadays with these economic times, they have the right to lien on your property and foreclose on that property. So you better make sure that the CC&Rs that you're under in is something that you can agree with and live with.
Exactly. I know a lot of people don't take the time to read them and then get shocked when they get warning letters or fines from their HOA about things that they've done. Right.
And I think there has to be some HOA has such a broad powers under NRS Chapter 116. I think people should know what the HOA can do. And I'm just going to list some things that the HOA can do. And that one is obviously, actually, they're not only it's their duty, but they're required by law to adopt bylaws, to adopt a budget. Basically, they can hire fire agents, employees, or vendors just like any other entity. They can institute or defend civil litigation just like any corporation. They're basically a nonprofit corporation. They can contract or incur liabilities on behalf of the HOA board. They can, repair common elements, which is basically what they're there for is for maintenance of the common elements. And one of the broad powers that in NRS Chapter 116 has given them is that it's a language that I've always shocked me, is all other powers necessary for proper governance and operation of association. That means anything and everything, at least within the limits of NRS Chapter 116, they can do to maintain the HOA units or the HOA community.
And I think a lot of them have taken that to the extreme, which is why we're in the situation we are today with federal investigations and lawsuits and the anger.
Right. And I can't blame the HOA alone for that. There's a lot of collusion that has happened to that. I was actually involved in a case similar to that, and it's now in federal court. Some of them is actually in state court, and we'll see what happens to that. It'll be interesting to find out what goes on with the federal investigation.
You talked about association bylaws as one of the things an HOA is supposed to do. What are association bylaws?
Bylaws are basically guidelines for association to operate by. They set forth the duties of various officers of the board, the terms of the length of their officership, the voting rights, required meetings, how did they notice a meeting, or how did they notice an amendment to amendment to the bylaws or amendment to the CC&Rs. And these are good to have, especially for people that would like to be active in the HOA. I don't know why you would be, but but definitely those are good information to have.
All right, we will be back discussing more about HOAs with attorney Airene Williamson from the Williamson Law Office right after we check in with news, traffic, and weather on News Talk 720 KDWN.
Recently, the U.S. Navy delivered tons of food to hungry people halfway around the world.
But you could help someone in your own community simply by donating a can of soup.
Last week, a Navy doctor saved the life of a total stranger.
Just like you could, by giving a pint of blood.
Right now, a Navy captain is providing guidance to 5,000 young men and women at sea.
While there's at least one young person in your neighborhood who could use your guidance.
Next month, a team of Navy Seabees will change a child's life by building a school in an impoverished area.
You could do the same, simply by volunteering once a week to read at a school right down the street.
The men and women of America's Navy do some amazing things to make the world a better place. So can you. Whether it's by donating food or simply giving time, right in your own backyard. Brought to you by America's Navy.
50,000 watts of news and talk. News Talk 720 KDWN, Las Vegas, the dawn of today's talk radio.
AP Update. I'm Rita Foley. Fed Chief Ben Bernanke has just finished his testimony before a Senate committee saying, yes, we still have high unemployment, but the economy is growing moderately, though unevenly. And he indicated that the Fed will continue to keep borrowing costs low.
Keeping longer-term interest rates low has helped spark recovery in the housing market and led to increased sales and production of automobiles and other durable goods.
Bernanke said the risks of inflation are contained for now. And on the subject of those automatic spending cuts due to kick in on Friday, this warning.
The Congress and the administration should consider replacing the sharp front-loaded spending cuts required by the sequestration with policies that reduce the federal deficit more gradually in the near term, but more substantially in the longer run.
It's important, he said, not to cut the deficit too much while the economy is still fragile. He noted the automatic spending cuts would trim growth by 0.6 of a percentage point this year. AP Update. I'm Rita Foley.
9:32 in the KDON 1 Nevada Credit Union Traffic Center with an update brought to you by Binion's Gambling Hall. Got a couple of right lanes blocked on the Southern Beltway. It's on the eastbound side of 215 between South Decatur and the connectors to 15 South and Las Vegas Boulevard. Again, a couple of right lanes are blocked by that accident. Elsewhere, crashes on the Sahara off-ramp from 15 northbound and leftover wrecks on 95 southbound between Rainbow and Jones and 95 south at Jones. New crash on the northbound airport connector past I-215. Injury wreck in the southwest, Rainbow at Russell. West side crash, Desert Inn at Arville. East side accidents, Trop at Eastern. Bonanza west of Lamb. KDWN weather, sunshine with a high of 61 this afternoon. Right now it's 47 in Las Vegas, and more of the KDON Legal Hour with attorney Airene Williamson's coming up. From the KDON 1 Nevada Credit Union Traffic Center, I'm Mitch Kelly on News Talk 720 KDWN.
Rediscover good food at Binion's. Benny's Bullpen now has a Chicago-style 10-inch cheese pizza made to order for just $3.49. Visit Benny's Bullpen today. Binion's, good food, good whiskey, good gamble.
24/7 private vault, better than a bank.
It's Mr. Elliott at 24/7 Private Vaults. Your name and your Social Security number are on file in every institution, including the bank. At 24/7 Private Vaults, we do not have your name or your Social Security number. Call me at 948-5555. 948-5555.
24/7 private vault, better than a bank.
You know taking care of your teeth is important. They're the only ones you're going to get. But if you don't have dental insurance, a costly procedure like a crown or root canal can cost you hundreds of dollars. And it's only a matter of time before you could get stuck with a really expensive bill. Fortunately, thanks to Physicians Mutual Insurance Company, you can get dental insurance for less than you might imagine for just about every procedure you're likely to need. Everything from cleanings and fillings to crowns and dentures. For a free information kit, call 1-800-900-6154. Your acceptance is guaranteed for one of these insurance policies. There are no networks, no deductibles, and no annual maximum, which is great because you know how quickly dental bills can add up. So why wait another minute? Call today and let us help pay for your next exam. For your free information kit with all the details, call 1-800-900-6154. 1-800-900-6154. 6154.
Interested in making some extra money? Listen to How to Make Money with One Click every Sunday from 3 to 3:30 on News Talk 720 KDWN. Jack and Jill will talk about just that, how to make money with one click. Sunday afternoons at 3, only on News Talk 720 KDWN.
Hi, this is Ken Thompson from SportsX Radio, inviting you to join me each and every night, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m., right here, 50,000 watt AM 720 KDWN, for the greatest in sports talk, breaking down all the games. SportsX Radio, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m., sponsored by Canna Racing Sportsbooks.
Now back to KDWN's Legal Hour. Have a legal question? Call now. 257-KDWN. That's 257-5396.
KDWN News Time 9:35. Welcome back to the KDWN Legal Hour with attorney Airene Williamson from the Williamson Law Office. If you'd like to contact Airene at work, 702-608-4072, or you can send Airene an email at info@wlawoffice.com. Of course, if you have comments or questions, 257-5396, the number right here in the studio. Discussing HOAs today, the theme, the topic of the show. We were discussing association bylaws, and we've also talked about CC&Rs. I think people get confused. Are they the same thing? Are they different things? Do they mean the same thing?
No. Bylaws basically governs what the officers' responsibilities are. The CC&Rs are basically rules and regulations on how to use a particular unit, for example. These are regulations set by the homeowners. They are mandated by NRS Chapter 116, stating that the homeowners, HOA, in order to preserve the value of the property, has to set up rules and regulations on how to uniformly use the unit. And that goes from how to landscaping, how to paint your house. So those are basically the CC&Rs, and they are recorded on your property. So they basically take precedence, and I'll talk about that later on. We'll talk about priority and liens, but they take precedence on any other mortgage that are out there that is recorded after the CC&R. So they have to be followed. They are called, in our property law class in the past, it's called covenants running with the land. So it runs with the land, whoever is the owner of the house. So they have to follow that. That's the CC&Rs.
And I know a lot of people feel they're invasive. Why can't I paint my garage door the color that I want to paint my garage door? But again, you're supposed to know what the CC&Rs are before you buy a house.
Exactly. And in fact, it's actually a requirement before you buy a house that they provide you with a copy of the CC&Rs. Otherwise, within a certain day, you can actually revoke buying a house if you have not received the CC&R. So it's important to have it read. And if I buy a house, I always read it and make sure it's up to my standard. It's something that I can live with. And some of them are pretty, petty. Some of them are pretty livable with, but a lot. I guess the idea is for them to keep up the value of the property, which I don't think has been successful.
No, and in a lot of cases, don't think you're going to go in and think, well, I'll be able to change that. I really like this house. I don't like that one rule, but I'll be able to change it, because it's not easy to change.
It's not easy to change. It has to go through an amendment, which we'll talk about later. But I think what the problem is not following the CC&R, but the assessments that comes with it. I mean, a lot of people come to me and say, I got assessed for this particular violation. What can I do? And there are certain ways for property managers and HOA board out there to do before we can have a penalty on a house. And we'll take this call for a bit before I go through that.
They are not ready to come on the air yet.
Okay, sure.
So when they are, we will take the call. So let's continue with assessments. First of all, what are they and how is the amount determined?
Okay, assessments and penalties are different. Assessments are what you call the monthly dues that are, that you have to pay, and everybody knows that as they own a house, or even if they're actually a tenant living on a house, their particular landlord are responsible for their HOA assessments. Assessments means any monies levied on the unit to particularly conduct landscaping or insurance or administrative costs or utility bills, all those ongoing maintenance that the HOA will charge you for, so they can continue their business of maintaining your property. So these assessments are either charged monthly or annually, depending on the CC&Rs. It's usually monthly. And if they are assessments, what are your rights when you're having assessments? Well, the NRS Chapter 116 provides that every year they have to provide you with a schedule of your assessments. You have to be informed of how much it is. If you have any arrears on the penalty side, which is different, and we'll talk about that later, they have to inform you that, so you're ready to pay the assessments. And those, you got to be careful when you're ignoring those assessments, because it will become a lien on your house.
How does an HOA determine what the assessments are? It seems like they vary widely here in the Valley, from maybe $50 a month to several $100 a month.
Right. And it does vary, and it will depend on their operating budget. Again, they can't just say, okay, we'll be $50 this month and $1,000 next month. They will have to give you a schedule yearly, the fiscal year, depending on how your CC&Rs operate. They have to provide you with what they're going to charge you for the rest of the year. And if there are any changes or increases on that, they will have to go through the process of amending the CC&Rs and the voting through the meeting. So it does vary widely, and it will depend on the operating budget of the HOA.
So times got tough here in Las Vegas. Everybody knows that. If your salary's cut back or you lose your job, you have to decide what you're going to pay and what you're not going to pay. And HOA assessments really seem to be a thing that people decide, that is one thing that I'm just not going to pay right now because I don't have the money. So what happens if you stop paying?
Well, there's a lot of things that can happen when you stop paying. And now I can understand a lot of people do not want to pay the HOA because it does take them a while to take action on it. Sometimes it takes them months, maybe years for it to become a lien. But basically, there are a lot of penalties that can come with not paying an assessment. One of it is that it becomes a lien, and we'll talk about how it becomes a lien later on your property, that if you have to sell it, then you have to clear the lien first before you sell it, or they can move to foreclose on that lien, which is, rarely happens, but it does happen. I've done it in the past. I've done it for clients in the past. Another thing that you are responsible for if you have a late assessments is obviously interest. They will tack on interest on the assessments, and if there are collection costs, either by using a collection agency or attorney, they will tack on that as well. And attorney's costs, they will tack on that as well for assessments.
All right. We do have a phone call for you, Irene. Good morning, Matthew.
Good morning.
Hi, Matthew.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am a snowbird, which means I live in Nevada 4 months of the year.
Right.
I bought a property so we could live in rather than hotels. And when I bought it in August of 2010, I was told that don't worry about the roof or the garage door because it's covered by the HOA.
Right. I can see where this is going, Matthew. Go ahead.
My roof is in dire shape. It's not leaking only because it's not raining. Okay? I called the HOA, and they said, oh, we don't do roofs. So I hung up, and then I said, well, I'm going to find out about the garage door. So I called back, and I said, my garage door is in bad shape. Oh, we don't cover that anymore either. Now, at one time, they did. Now, how would they ever get the power to say, we'll do John's roof, but every roof after this is not going to get done?
Now, John, it will depend on the CC&Rs that you've signed, and I'm going to have to take a look at it in person. But in any case, if it's not on, it could be there's some amendment that has occurred in the CC&Rs that you may not be aware of, that there could, if you're here only 4 months in the year, they may have voted to either take that off their responsibility that you may not know of.
Right.
So
when I bought the place, my real estate lady said, it's all covered. Now,
right.
And she gave me a copy of the CNRs that were in place at that time, or supposedly in place at that time.
Right, right.
But it doesn't say in my CNRs what the common areas are or what the common elements are. It doesn't say anywhere regarding roofs or garage doors or anything, but it does say that the reserve fund is only allowed to be used for such things as roofs and repair of common grounds.
Right, right. And that's the CC&R in effect when you moved into the house, correct?
Right.
Okay.
But there was no amendment stating since then, in 2008, we changed the rule or anything like this. We understood that these were the CCRs as of current date, August 2010.
Right, Matthew. And assuming that that's the case, assuming that there has not been any amendments that you don't know of or I don't know of, then you're entitled to have that roof repaired. Now, I'm not quite sure what roof you're referring to, but I have not seen, typically roofs are not common areas. This is
a townhouse situation.
Oh, okay, right. Okay, if that makes more sense. I thought it was a residential single-family residence, right.
Right, and I happen to be in a single standalone townhouse rather than a attached wall or a multiple housing.
And you know what? In that case, Matthew, it's more likely than not that they should be responsible for that roof. But, assuming that there's no amendments since then that you haven't voted on or nobody has voted on, it should be part of your repair.
Do I have the right to go to my association, say I want to see the minutes of all the general meetings?
Definitely. That is part of your right as a unit owner. Not only do you have a right to get the minutes of the meetings, you also have the right to get their operating budget and an explanation of what common areas are included in the reserve funds. And that's usually should be distributed every year. But if you haven't received it, then you can definitely request for it. Okay?
Well, I have received some information. However, that information is back in Canada. I'm now in Nevada.
Yeah.
So
they should be able to give you a copy. Now, they should be able to give you a copy of those. Now, sometimes they are entitled to cost of the copying, but if that's something that's important to you, you can definitely request it.
But can I not go to the office and read them at their office?
There's two ways to do it. The Nevada Revised Statute, Chapter 116, either provides access to those information, which is going to be at their principal office where you can go into and then review the documents. The second is obviously get a copy of it, and they can charge you for photocopies, which I think is 10 cents on a dollar. So those, yes.
I'm not overly concerned about the cost, but it's no good for me to go and have copies made of all this stuff and find out that there's absolutely nothing in it that can help my situation.
Right.
I'm wasting everybody's time at that point.
That's true.
All right, Matthew, hey, we appreciate your call. Hope you got your question answered. If you need more information from Irene, you can call her at her office at 608-4072 or send her an email at info@wlawoffice.com. We will be back for the final segment discussing HOAs with attorney Airene Williamson right after we check in with Mitch Kelly in the KDON 1 Nevada Credit Union Traffic Center.
It's report at 946, brought to you by Constant Contact. Want your marketing plan to be as stress-free as the open road? Email marketing from Constant Contact's an easy-to-use tool that helps you to reach your customers in a place they're checking every day, their inbox. Sign up for a free trial from the industry-leading provider at ConstantContact.com. Injury accident 215 eastbound between South Decatur and the 15 connectors continues to block the right lanes. That's causing backups to almost Rainbow now on 215 eastbound. One other freeway wreck out on the Sahara off-ramp from 15 northbound. Slowdowns coming out of approaching the northbound airport connector tunnel. There's a crash on the northbound airport connector between I-215 and the tunnel. The crash is on the right shoulder, so that's Curiosity slowdowns. Leftover surface street wrecks in the southwest, Rainbow at Russell, west side Deserted at Arville, east side Tropicana at Eastern, Bonanza west of Lamb. Next reports at 10, and from the KDON 1 Nevada Credit Union Traffic Center, I'm Mitch Kelly on News Talk 720 KDWN.
Having trouble telling time when your alarm goes off in the morning? Need to have someone across the table hold the menu for you when you eat out? Do you need the Reader's Digest big print version of everything? KDWN's John Schaefer here, and that used to be me once. That was until I had a LASIK procedure at LASIK of Nevada. Dr. Rothman and the staff of LASIK of Nevada have performed over 50,000 LASIK procedures on athletes, celebrities, and regular Nevadans like me. Dr. Rothman takes the time to sit down and explain the entire LASIK procedure to you. It really makes you feel comfortable prior to the procedure. Don't like wearing those glasses or contacts? Then call LASIK of Nevada right now to set up your free consultation. 636-2010. That's 636-2010. You know, today's LASIK can be safer and more comfortable than ever before. In fact, the FDA says the advanced technology used by LASIK of Nevada is safe and effective. So what are you waiting for? Put on those glasses you hate and give LASIK of Nevada a call today. 636-2010. 636-2010 and set up your free consultation. There's a big, beautiful world out there. Why not see it more clearly?
Are you missing one or more teeth and wondering, what are my options? Or do you wear dentures and wish for a more permanent solution? Then this message is for you. Dr. Matashmi of Albright Dental invites you to a free dental implant seminar, 5:30 p.m. Wednesday, February 27th. Dr. Matashmi will share with you the many options available today, including implant-supported dentures or partials and single-tooth replacement implants. All seminar attendees qualify for free sedation with their implant procedure. RSVP today at albrightsmile.com. That's albrightsmile.com.
Emerald Island Casino, the jewel of Henderson, Nevada's only all-penny casino where every day is promotion day. We're celebrating our 10th anniversary in 2013. New players receive 25 times and 75 times reward point multipliers. Emerald Island Casino offers 400 of the best and newest penny slot games. Use your reward points at local businesses for anything from car repair to wedding cakes. And while you're here, grab a bite at the Emerald Island Grill, open whenever you're hungry, 24/7. Come see us today.
Hi, this is Jim Dallas of Beasley Broadcasting. For years, I tried to cover up my crooked teeth. Well, those days are now long gone after I went to see Dr. Miracondia and his staff at AQ Denture. In one day, AQ gave me a smile I'm truly proud of. Call AQ for an appointment at 565-6000. That's 565-6000. Dental problems don't have to hold you back anymore, and don't worry about the cost. AQ stands for affordable quality. AQ Denture, 565-6000. That's 565-6000 for AQ Denture. They'll restore your smile and your confidence.
Now back to KDWN's Legal Hour. Have a legal question? Call now. 257-KDWN. That's 257-5396.
Welcome back to the KDWN Legal Hour, 9:49 here at News Talk 720 KDWN. We're with attorney Airene Williamson from the Williamson Law Office discussing HOAs. So let's just get to the stuff people love. Fines, violations, all that good kind of stuff. Are there procedures that an HOA has to have to notify a homeowner in the community if they're going to fine them for some violation?
Absolutely. But there's three things that the HOA can do if you have a violation. It's number one, they can either for a reasonable time prohibit you from attending any of the meetings, member meetings. Number two is they can prohibit you from using common elements, especially if the violation is some sort of a nuisance that you've performed or violated in the common elements. And obviously number three is imposing a fine on you for a particular violation. And there's three general things that they should, or the HOA should have before they fine a particular homeowner. And number one is that owner has to have participated or authorized the violation, either through their tenants or through their visitors or invitees. So that's one. Number two is they should have a prior notice of the violation, of course, either through the recording of CC&Rs. That's, a record notice that we call in the legal world, that you are a notice of what's right and what's wrong and what can be done in a unit. And you have the opportunity to stop the violation and you failed to do so. So basically you have to, as a HOA board member or a property manager, it's advisable actually that the HOA member either hire a property manager or an attorney to go through these notices, because NRS Chapter 116 not only changes a lot of times, but they have particular notices that you have to follow before you impose a violation. And number one is that when you get a warning letter for homeowners out there, and this is it's such a touchy subject because I see a lot of violations of NRS Chapter 116 from the HOA board. Number one, it has to have either the notice of the violation and what particular provision of the CC&R that you have violated. So obviously you can defend against it or you can pay it. Number two, it has to have the amount of the fine or the possible fines that you will incur if you continue to violate it, that either is included in the warning letter or the schedule of fines that you receive every year. Number three, you have to have date, time, and location of the hearing for your violation so you can have the opportunity to present a defense, or you can reduce the fines if you wanted to. And those have to be followed before a fine is imposed. And I've actually just 2 weeks ago, I have a client who came to me. He has a violation or a warning letter, and he never received a date, time, and location for a hearing. Now, property managers and HOA board, you must provide a venue for a hearing. This cannot be skipped, and this cannot be waived. Now, this can only be waived, and a hearing can only be waived by the particular owner in writing. They can waive that, certainly. And number two, they can either pay the fine before the hearing, then the hearing is not necessary at that point. And number three, if they have failed to appear at the hearing, even though you've given them an opportunity to do so.
And because there are these rules and regulations that have to be followed, a lot of complaints you get are, the warning letters I get are just so cold and sterile and nasty. But they have to put this information in there, so you're just going to get a generic letter. What do you want from your HOA? Dear so-and-so, we really like you, but here's what you've done wrong.
Right. Actually, most of the warning letters don't come from the HOA board. They come from property managers or collection agencies. So they don't really, first of all, I'd like to advise my client that not to take those personally, because most of the time the HOA board probably don't even know that such a violation exists, because it's the property manager that are, monitoring what's going on in the neighborhood and sending those warning letters in this template that they fill in. So what you have to do is either, if there's no notice of hearing, you have to request one. And usually it comes with a fillable form that you can check that you're requesting a hearing. That's usually good enough, as long as they provide a venue. So you got to make sure that those are there. And in fact, this recent AB 34 that they're trying to pass, now they have an added requirement that the property managers or the HOA board members have to show some reasonable belief, quote unquote, that you have committed a violation. I don't know what that entails. I don't know if that entails pictures, as I've said before. But there is a high threshold now to prove that you have committed a violation. But there are certainly steps to do so before you impose penalties and fines.
And do you have rights as a homeowner?
Yeah, well, yes, you do. I think a lot of board members forget that, or property managers forget that. Well, the notice provision is a right.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, and the most difficult part is what happens when you appear at the hearing, you state your case, you show your proof, and I never violated it, or I fixed it, and now you're incurring additional violations. What happens? What can you do, and what is the remedy? And there's really only very limited remedy you have, and that incurs a lot of costs. Number one is a democratic principle. Elect a different board. But that's a long step.
Right.
That takes a long time. And you don't really know who you're going to elect by the time they get there. Number two is to file a complaint with the Ombudsman with the Nevada Real Estate Division, or NRED. That's where you file a complaint, and they will investigate it, and then they will arbitrate or mediate the dispute. And if that doesn't work, then you file a lawsuit.
What about disputes between neighbors? If my next door neighbor's dog barks all the time, or they're noisy, is that something that's covered by the HOA as well? I can take that dispute to them?
Definitely. In fact, you can, just like any other complaint, you will have to file a complaint with the HOA. The HOA will send HOA property manager. If they deem it meritable, then they will send you a warning letter, or whoever you complain against, that your dog is barking too much, making too much noise. And then they will go through the same process of notifying you, date, location, amount of fine, what violation, what provision of the CCNRs you have violated. So you basically have a avenue for a dispute against a neighbor.
Would you suggest going to your neighbor first, though, and trying to work it out
Yes.
as neighbors before they get the nasty letter?
Yes, and I think it's not just in the case of neighbors, but also in the case of dispute within the HOA. In fact, before you file a dispute or a complaint in the Ombudsman for the Nevada Real Estate Division, they will ask you if you have tried to talk to the HOA board. And usually things can be worked out in an informal way. You can go to the hearing and state your case. You can fix it. You can fix the violation. And there's no harm, no foul. And everybody goes their own way. But definitely that's something that is advisable. And in fact, it's a requirement before the NRED takes your case, is that you talk to the HOA board first before they take in the complaint.
Because in the end, you are all neighbors and live in the same neighborhood or complex or development. It's not a bunch of strangers on the board that are from some outside entity.
Not only that, and then that's a good point, not only that, is that one of the things, if you did decide to go to mediation or arbitration, guess who pays for the HOA attorney's fees if they have the attorneys representing them? That would be you as a unit owner, because they will definitely prorate the attorney's fees to everyone, and everyone's going to pay for that HOA.
All right, we have another call for you, Irene. Let's get Carmen on the line here. Good morning, Carmen.
Good morning. I just a beautiful Chinese couple asked me where maybe they could find a house, and I told them, please, no HOA. Don't buy from any. Don't get involved with any HOA. They charge fees for everything.
Right.
And to me, it's like living in a communist country. It's already that way with the Democrats and Republicans as it is.
Right.
So they're very unfair. There's too many rules. They don't leave you alone. You buy a house, and right away they're dictating to you. It's a dictatorship. It doesn't belong in this country. I don't know who screwed up our laws, but there's no rule of law left in this nation. There's no rule of
Right. And, on one hand, there's the argument that HOAs can be dictatorial, but on the other hand, those CCNRs have been recorded on the unit owners or the unit property. And, when you buy a house, that is your choice whether to be under the regulations or not.
All right, we have come to the end of yet another program. Hard to believe. The hour flies
that
by.
was fast. I always have a hard time going through my materials, but definitely next week I will talk about the Affordable Health Care Act, or what's called the Obamacare, for a lot of people, and how it will affect businesses and their employees.
All right, Airene Williamson, attorney at law from the Williamson Law Office, 608-4072, Irene's number at work, or you can email her at info@wlawoffice.com. Ray Lucia coming your way next, right here on News Talk 720 KDWN.
As a single mom of 3, I wanted to show my children that it's important to support our troops while they're defending our country. Adopt a Serviceman helped us adopt 5 airmen 3 years ago, and we're still very close to them and their families. This year, I'm bringing my boss, my friends, and my family to come out and find a serviceman to adopt.
Packages, letters, and emails from home let our troops know they're valued and supported. You can show your support by joining us for Adopt a Serviceman, Saturday, March 2nd at Silverton Casino, 4 to 7 p.m. For more info, log on to adoptaserviceman.com. Brought to you by Pods of Las Vegas, the best moving and storage idea ever. Godin Ford, Las Vegas Harley-Davidson, and All-Star Bail Bonds.
Hello, this is Dr. Benjamin with Dream Dental. Are you afraid of the dentist? I can help with sedation dentistry. Call me at 24-DREAM for free consultation. That's 24-DREAM. 24-DREAM.
With 3 locations valley-wide, Dream Dental offers dentistry with your total comfort in mind. Now offering free sedation with dental implants.